Hi guys, welcome back to Red Flag Radio F1 YouTube channel. We are here to talk about the Austrian Grand Prix and what a race we have just witnessed in Spielberg. The Red Bull Ring may be nestled in the Styrian Mountains, but this was no peaceful Sunday. This was pure chaos. From the very first lap to the final flag, the 2025 Austrian Grand Prix delivered on everything. Let's start with the team who got the best result. Are there any surprises? McLaren.
Yeah.
Let's start with McLaren.
Man, we
Who?
already saw that coming, right? That we definitely knew it's gonna be a McLaren 1-2 if they don't take each other out. It was just a matter of what order of 1-2, whether it's Piastri Norris or Norris Piastri. And yeah, it was only a matter of time before we saw Norris win. It did start to seem like this championship is slipping away from him, but this is a statement drive from him today because the number of things he has had to survive, from back markers, traffic, actual overtakes from Oscar, to gaining that position back, to strategically keeping his position on track during pit stops. He had to survive everything, and it was a masterstroke of a drive from him. He delivered on the pole that he got, and he drove as such, and he deserves every bit of this victory as much as Oscar did as well. And it's amazing. It's an amazing result for my favorite team, of course, but 15 points from Oscar now. I mean, Lando is closing the gap.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, McLaren on paper got 1-2, but this was an all out war today. Like, they just fought at an amazing level. It was clean. Yeah, I think it was clean. There were no errors, maybe a little bit, but sometimes that happens. As long as they are not taking each other out, I think it's clean.
Yeah.
And obviously, Oscar Piastri is the championship leader, but the way he drove, the way he defended, I think this was one of the best drives of the season so far, and that's why he got the third win of the season. And it was a well-deserved one, considering how he has performed overall in this whole weekend. And best part was that he didn't bottle his start as well, which is, we always say that something that probably lacks for Lando Norris. And so far, I think it was one of the best race weekends for him this year.
Yeah, because you see, we'll get to the Williams later on, but because the first lap incident with Sainz, there was a 7.5 minute delay to the actual start of the race. And you have to imagine that more than anyone else, someone who's used to fucking up his starts, this must have been like a nightmare situation because the adrenaline is leaving his body. It was a nightmare scenario, and I definitely thought that Oscar was going to eat him up. And credit where it's due, Oscar did do that. But I mean, Lando proved that he is the more experienced driver, and no one can take that away from him.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, Piastri, I think his start was amazing. Like, the minimum job for Piastri at that moment was to overtake Leclerc as early as possible. And he did. And he was very close to even fight Lando Norris from the lap one. Obviously, there was more drama, which probably stopped that maybe wheel to wheel battle straight away. But it was an amazing start for both drivers, and Piastri did whatever it was needed. And I feel there were no papaya rules, and that's the reason why we got that perfect wheel to wheel battle between both drivers, because historically we have seen how tough it is to drive in Austria. Even Lando Norris had issues last year with Max Verstappen. So I feel it was an amazing result, and probably they are the reasons why we enjoyed this Austrian Grand Prix, because we always want to see that wheel to wheel battle for that victory, right? And we got that in this race weekend.
I mean, I enjoyed it for more reasons other than a McLaren 1-2. I mean, watching Max Verstappen DNF in the first lap of the race fills me with utter joy and makes my faith in God rekindled. But yeah, other than that, there were no other reasons. But it does bear repeating, since I saw this only an hour ago somewhere, that Oscar during the post-race interview said that after all these years, Alpine has still found a way to fuck me up. And that's true, man. That is so true. I mean,
Yeah.
there was every possibility we could have gotten some last 2 laps drama between Lando and Oscar until Colapinto ran him off the track. And full
The-
marks to Colapinto for playing Lando's teammate there.
in 2023 we were saying that maybe Piastri will be in Alpine, and we know what was going on behind the scenes and how tough it is to be part of Alpine now. But coming back from that situation to be fighting for that championship and be 15 points ahead of other drivers, I think that's phenomenal. But he will be feeling that pressure now because Lando Norris did his part, and next is his home Grand Prix. So the momentum is slightly shifting towards his side. And if Lando Norris can do that one more time, it will be just one more win away to maybe be as close to Piastri as possible on championship standings. And that's what he needs.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't suppose that's going to happen, honestly, because it's not really like Lando to be consistent race after race. So, that being said, we will see, of course, what happens. This is all just speculation, but I don't know, man. I still favor Piastri for the championship, at least this year. Yeah, that's pretty much it for McLaren. I'd very much like to talk more about Ferrari now, because their fucking upgrades worked.
Yeah,
They were third
P3,
and fourth.
P4.
Exactly. Who, not even in my wildest dreams did I imagine a clean and a good weekend from Ferrari, but this is exactly what they needed to get back up to P2. Because Mercedes did eat them up and did take P2 last race. So this was something that they needed desperately, and it's good to see that at least there is one team whose upgrades are working at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they got P3 and P4, and we haven't seen Lewis Hamilton be that close to podium apart from the China sprint that we have talked about quite many times now. But the only difference apart from the upgrades was that Fred Vasseur was not here. He was absent for this race weekend. Again, we are not starting any drama or any speculation, but this was the race weekend where they didn't get any drama, which is good for them because sometimes no fireworks is something that you need to get those crucial points, right? And as you mentioned, now they are second in the constructor standings, and they desperately needed that. So it was a clean weekend, and we have already discussed that McLaren is in a league of their own. So being the second best in this situation was probably the best possible scenario, right? And I think both drivers would be happy with that result, and that's the momentum that they need, especially Lewis Hamilton, who will be driving in Silverstone, which he won last year, right? So
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? Now that he has confidence in the car, he was also looking a lot more feisty when he was racing against Russell at the beginning stages of the Grand Prix. Because,
Right.
make no mistake, Russell saw a chance and he did his best and damnedest to take that chance. But then that fizzled into nothing because Lewis defended it because he finally understood the car and the car understood him. And this is exactly what they needed, right? Because Leclerc was trying to make something out of the car time and time again anyway. It was Lewis who really had to catch up to Leclerc in terms of getting, or rather extracting performance out of the car. And it seems like they've worked that out. And
Absolutely.
many congratulations to Lewis for that. And I'm glad that Ferrari is also looking competitive because, as you said, McLaren is in a league of their own in terms of the constructors at least. So I would very much like to see battles at the top with other teams, and right now it looks like Mercedes and Ferrari are the ones fighting each other for that. And that's amazing.
Yeah, man. And like we also discussed that this is the consistency that they need to be P2, and they are getting that from both drivers. So that's the reason why they are ahead of all the teams except McLaren now. So I think that's how it should be. And if something bad happens at top, obviously I feel Ferrari would be the first team to capitalize on it now.
Yeah, and that's great stuff for Ferrari, but the thing is that they were, apart from Lewis's few scraps at the beginning with Russell, there is not a lot to talk about Ferrari. They did do a great job, a very clean weekend, but perhaps such a clean weekend that there is not much we can say except great job to Ferrari and the boys.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
But
Yeah.
we should probably move on to a driver that deserves a lot of our attention and a lot of our praise, which is Liam Lawson. Fucking finally doing something in a racing bulls, man.
Absolutely, man. He finally delivered this week, and P6 his career best finish, and more importantly, he kept it clean and calm while chaos erupted around him. We talked about that lap one incidents that happened, and he desperately needed that result. And for me, he's the driver of the day, as he was fighting Fernando Alonso for the majority of the race, and he was the other driver who made that one stop work, which is not easy. And I think that was the result that probably will cement his position in this team, because we have talked about this many times that Erwin Lindblad is also watching, and probably he will be that driver who wants to join Racing Bulls. But this is the result that Liam Lawson can show, and if he can show that consistency, of course, this will definitely cement his position in this team. And probably if some better offer comes in future, I think he should be pleased. And yeah, I think this will be the momentum shift that he really needed. That whether he can capitalize that on a long run, probably we have to wait. But an amazing effort, and he deserves all the praise for this weekend.
Absolutely, but I don't think, as much as this is a great weekend for him, I don't think this is something that is replicable long term. That being said, however, he can use this race as something to rub in Helmut Marko's face, because the guy who replaced him at Red Bull did fuck all, and he had penalty points on top of that this race. And more importantly, the guy that the team can't stop dick riding also did not finish the race. So he single-handedly out-qualified and out-raced the entire Red Bull team. Sure, Max was a lap 1 incident, so we cannot fault him much for that. But the bottom line, the summarizing line is Liam Lawson did better than both Red Bull drivers combined this race at their home race.
Absolutely, and the best part is he also performed better than Isaac Hadjar, who is getting all the praise for this whole season. But Hadjar just finished P12, and as per his standards, I think this will be a disappointing race for him, because if Racing Bulls want to move closer to P5 in constructor standings, they need both drivers to score points regularly, right? And not just one driver out of two. Because we have seen Hadjar scoring left, right, center, and this was the race where Liam Lawson did the part. So if they want to overtake Williams, which I think is possible now, we will talk about Williams, but they need both drivers to score points now, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's great to see Liam Lawson start to pull the weight for his team as well. And I just hope this is something that keeps on repeating. But yeah, man, speaking of a team that does have both drivers delivering now, fucking Sauber double points.
Absolutely,
And third race
man.
in a row for Nico Hulkenberg, but amazing stuff for him. All credit where it's due. But fucking Bortoleto, man, he's finally in the points. He can shove this in Helmut Marko's face as well.
I think Helmut Marko won't be having a good night after this race weekend.
Absolute nightmare for him, man. But yeah. And this, did you see, by the way, that this put Nico Hulkenberg as the 10th place in the driver standings as well? Fucking Sauber in the 10th place in the WDC.
You know what? I think Sauber is the team to watch out for now. With the upgrades they brought so far, I think Sauber is not that team who will be fighting for that bottom end now. I think they are very close to be that P5, P6 constructor. Maybe in some race weekends they can be P4, and in some weekends they can be P7, P8 as well. But this was the race weekend that would be, an amazing start for Bortoleto, because as we said that he scored his first points, and it was an amazing race. And at last, during the last phase, he was fighting with his mentor Fernando Alonso as well, and he could have overtaken him, but obviously because of that lapped car moments he couldn't. But amazing job for Bortoleto as well as Nico Hulkenberg, who I did say that maybe he will get in points even after starting from last, and he did prove me right. P9 is amazing, and I think this is their first double points finish since I think maybe 2023. So this is an amazing achievement for Kick Sauber, and something that we can't ignore now.
Yeah, this is exactly the kind of stuff that Williams should be shitting bricks about, because now Racing Bulls is scoring points. Haas is also scoring points. We'll get to that as well. Esteban Ocon went off script. He was not supposed to score points this weekend, but he did. And now Sauber is getting double points. I mean, James Vowles is not going to have a nice night either. He's going to have a few sleepless nights now going into Silverstone.
Absolutely. But if we have to talk about Kick Sauber, I think it is a small win or maybe a big win for the team that's been, at the start were all about memes and liveries. So
Yeah.
now they have some points to show.
Absolutely, and this is a huge psychological win as well, honestly, because this is the kind of, as a backmarker driver, you're constantly under the impression that you're fighting for the bottom 5 positions, right? And to be able to find a way 3 races in a row for one of the drivers, if not both of the drivers, to be in points is going to be a huge morale boost for the drivers as well, especially Bortoleto, because I feel starting from Sauber, a talented reigning F2 champion that he is, it must not feel very good to be at the bottom end fighting for 15, 16, 17. So I'm glad he is also getting a great drive out of it now, and I mean, it looks like Sauber is set to impress Audi, man.
Yeah, man. And Audi would be thinking now that which two drivers they have to approach, because it is a start of new era. And if this is the pairing that is working, then why they have to look for any other option? If these two guys can do the job, then maybe they can stick with these two drivers. And that's something, I think as a fan would be an amazing thing to watch, because there's that chemistry that we can see now between Bortoleto and Hulkenberg as well. So I think this is probably the team that maybe APXGP really wanted in the F1 movie. If you haven't watched it, we won't give any spoilers, but I think Kick Sauber would be pleased with their performance, and probably these two drivers can continue scoring points for that team, right?
Exactly. And you know what, though, I'm not gonna pretend to comment a lot on Bortoleto, but if you're Audi, you cannot afford to ignore Hulkenberg. He's the
Yeah.
obvious choice for the second driver at the very least. If the game plan for Audi is to have one hot-blooded young driver who's gonna chase podiums and wins, and to have one older driver who's gonna mentor that driver, much like Apex GP, you definitely can't ignore Hulkenberg for that. I mean, you're a German team, he's a German driver, and he's way more talented than we'd expected in terms of at least extracting performance out of a parrot green shit box. And I don't even think we can call it a green shit box anymore. I mean, the upgrades
Yeah,
are fucking
man.
what, man?
Yeah, it's not shitbox anymore.
So,
It is a rocket ship now.
absolutely. So, yeah, if you're Audi, you don't ignore Hulkenberg. That's my take on this, at least.
But so far so good, and I feel Kick Sauber can definitely continue this performance for the upcoming race weekends as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think Haas, or as we mentioned, Esteban Ocon went off script and bagged some points. I think Haas has got a bunch of momentum as well going into the coming races, because you know what? Esteban Ocon I do not like, but goddamn, I can't deny the fact that he's pulling his weight. And I mean, getting points every other weekend, and in the past 3 races, Esteban Ocon has scored points for Haas. So that's something you cannot ignore. And it's another team that Williams also has to worry about. I keep coming back to Williams because now this is the third race where they have gotten 0 points in a row. They are not looking very comfortable anymore. Both Haas and Racing Bulls and even Sauber now are all catching up, and they're hot on the heels of Williams for P5, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was the race where Haas did really well, because let's just say Ocon got the point, but even Ollie Bearman was P11. He was just outside the points, and if something horribly goes wrong for at the front, he could have capitalized on that and be in points. So I think there was that pace that probably we were not aware of, and that's the reason why Ocon was able to get 1 point, and that 1 point can help that team to move forward if they are very close to on points with other teams as well. So amazing stuff, and we know Ocon is that driver who extracts some performance from that car. We have seen that historically with the way he's driving this year. So an amazing achievement for Haas, and probably they can capitalize on that. And whether Ollie Bearman can get some points in his home Grand Prix next race weekend, I think that would be an amazing sight to watch, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? Since we're on the subject, I want to take this time to point out that somehow we've managed to talk about three supposedly backmarker teams within the first 20 minutes of this video. It just goes to show how crazy this season is in terms of the grid being bunched up, because out of nowhere, we're yet to talk about Mercedes and Red Bull.
I
And
think
we're
this is the
talking-
best time.
Exactly, but we somehow found a way, and the drivers somehow found a way to be in the top 5 on our list, because they've just delivered some phenomenal performances in the past few races. And yeah, crazy from the back markers as well.
Absolutely, they deserve that credit. We always, say that we don't have much to talk about them, but this was the race weekend where I feel they deserve that spotlight, and that's the reason why we thought that it's time. It's the best thing to do to wait and talk about Mercedes and Red Bull, because I think this is something that we must talk about as well, because we can't ignore that. Let's just start with Mercedes, because George Russell finished P5. I think that was the maximum points possible, considering Ferrari was really good, and obviously McLaren in a league of their own. I don't want to talk about McLaren at this point, but I think P5 was the only position that George Russell could have managed with the car they had, and obviously it was just high temperature and not favorable conditions for Mercedes. But Kimi Antonelli, oh dear, he locked up at that turn 3 and just slammed into Verstappen, took himself out, took Verstappen out on lap 1, and maybe it was just a rookie mistake and something that every driver goes through. But I don't know, man. It's not something that he really wanted. And obviously, he got 3 place grid penalty as well for the next race. So it was not something that we were expecting to happen. At least from my side, I was not expecting that to happen, because I thought that Verstappen as well as Antonelli will move forward. But yeah, man, it was surprising, and I was also shocked. And probably this is what maybe Max Verstappen needed to end his incredible point streak as well, which we will talk about Red Bull. But I think Kimi Antonelli won't be happy with that, and probably he needs to forget about this race weekend and just concentrate on the next race weekend, because this was that weekend to forget after getting that podium in Canada, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, that 3 place grid penalty seems a little unfair to me. As much as I find it hilarious that Verstappen DNF'd at the Red Bull ring, and the irony is just simply lovely, I can't help but think that it was not really Antonelli's fault there. He had, as he claimed on the radio, he had a rare lockup, and that was a factor of the fact that he was completely bunched up and surrounded from all sides. I mean, he was the choices were either going into Verstappen and DNFing himself and Verstappen, or swerving right and DNFing someone else and himself, or swerving left and DNFing himself and someone else. So his options were just an MCQ of who to DNF, and I think given that McLaren is their customer team, Mercedes' customer team, he chose the right driver to DNF along with himself. So
But I think that penalty was inevitable, because even though if he would have crashed with some other drivers, that lockup just, made that case where he had to take out some other driver, and that other driver was not in that fault, because he was just a passenger. And that's the reason why these penalties are there. And I think 3 place grid drop is a fair penalty, and obviously it was not that big mistake for other driver, and he was just a passenger. So I think that 3 place grid penalty makes sense, and even I think Verstappen acknowledged that, because he knew he couldn't do much at that situation, and even Antonelli knew that penalty was coming. So it can be a brutal case, but I think it was a fair case.
No,
That's how I see
in terms
it.
of penalties, it was fair. But my problem with this is that usually something like this happens, it is chalked up to lap 1 incidents. 8 out of 10 cases, you would notice that in such scenarios, the FIA would just ignore this, being like, oh, racing incident, lap 1. But it's very weird to me, and of course, we can spend not just these 40 minutes, we could spend a lifetime talking about how inconsistent the FIA is in terms of dishing out
Absolutely.
penalties, but Yeah, this is just so weird. I mean, forget lap 1. This was into turn 1. That is the place where you're supposed to expect chaos, and if chaos ensues, you cannot just be willy-nilly throwing away 3-place grid penalties at drivers, man. It's a clear and cut racing incident going into turn 1.
But I feel, as like you said, that they are very inconsistent with all the penalties, but I feel the penalties should be there, because if we don't penalize those drivers, then probably all drivers will just take out other drivers, like how we saw Bottas doing in Hungary to 2021. I think if you see that footage, Verstappen was in a different place, and Antonelli just came and he had to take some driver out, and it was unfortunately Verstappen for all the Red Bull fans. But I think that penalty was fair. Some people would say that it was something that he could have gotten, maybe a 5-place drop, but I think 3-place is a fair thing. And bringing that part where we should be consistent, I feel every turn 1, or I should say lap 1 case, should be penalized if it looks like that the other driver was just a passenger. That's how I see it.
That would have ended Danny Kvyat's career way sooner than it did. Then, I mean, thank God then, because then we wouldn't have gotten so much content to milk out of Danny Kvyat. But
Yeah.
I guess point taken. But I still feel like it should not have been a penalty situation at all. Or if you're going to penalize Antonelli, penalize every turn 1 incident as you suggested. Pick a
Yeah,
lane FIA.
every lap.
Yeah, pick a
Yeah,
lane.
absolutely. They have to take that. But whether they will take that, probably not.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Red Bull then. I
Yeah.
mean, Max Verstappen, as we said, he was just a passenger, but his incredible point streak ended. 31 races, man, it's not easy, and that ends with a DNF. And also Red Bull's team streak is now ended. They were on 77 races with points. I mean, full credit to Max Verstappen, but 77 races, and guess where that streak ended? Red Bull Ring. Of all the places possible, they decided to end their streak in Red Bull Ring. And when we saw that Max Verstappen was just fighting in front of thousands of orange fans, maybe they just went out, and because they were not there for the orange team, right? They were just there for their orange driver. And yeah, this is the weekend that probably they would be thinking that what the hell is going on with this team. And if Max Verstappen decides to leave this team, this is just a horror show for them, right?
I don't think it's a horror show, because I feel Red Bull, you sort of expect Max to leave at this point. And the reason I say that is, look at the track record just on this weekend alone. Drivers who are supposed to be your junior team are out qualifying you, they're outperforming you in the race. Forget Max Verstappen, because he could not help the situation he was in. But then Yuki Tsunoda did nothing. Moreover, he got a penalty, even though he was second last or third last, something like that, and he was still holding penalties. So this weekend was a nightmare for Red Bull, and it's especially sad because it was their home race. Like, imagine this kind of disgraceful weekend for Ferrari at Monza, for example, or Imola. There would be riots.
I don't think that. Yeah, exactly. I don't think Ferrari fans would leave Leclerc or Hamilton from that track. So it's just embarrassing, and probably some head scratching would be going on that how we can solve this issue, because clearly Yuki Tsunoda is not happy with that car. And if there's that case where Max Verstappen doesn't finish, then it just means that Red Bull can't score any points. And that's the harsh reality right now.
And this is just disgraceful teamwork, disgraceful performance, disgraceful strategizing. No matter how you dissect it, it sucks to be a Red Bull fan right now. And how much can you fault that to the car? At a certain point, it just seems like the management is fucked as well.
And I don't think they have that many points to show to Max Verstappen as well, although they can say that probably, Mercedes was the team who took you out. If you really want to join them, then fair enough. But right now, there is no direction for that team. And this was the race weekend where Max Verstappen did bring some up, or I should say Red Bull. I am saying Max Verstappen, like, yeah, this is the Max Verstappen team, but the upgrades were not looking that solid as well. And probably we have to wait for Silverstone to see how Yuki Tsunoda can perform with that upgrades. But this is the case where I don't have anything else to say about Red Bull, and that's just depressing, disappointing, whatever way you want to call it.
Yeah, and I don't fault you for that, man, because what can you say here, honestly? Because ignoring the DNF as well, Max had qualified 7th. What was he gonna do ahead of the cars? And maybe he would have overtaken Lawson, but then what? Do we really think he would have overtaken Russell as well? No, I don't think so.
Maybe,
They didn't have
but
the
it's
pace.
a
Fine, maybe they fight it out and they end up, somehow Max ends up by using his wits to get ahead. Then, was he next going to fight Lewis? It was always an uphill journey. Fine, let's say he overtakes Lewis as well. Was he going to overtake Leclerc? By the time he gets to Leclerc, surely the car runs out of performance. Because if it really had that kind of performance to outrace Mercedes and Ferrari, it would not have qualified behind both of them. So,
yeah.
I just don't see any scenario I can dream up where Max did very well in this race. Realistically, no matter how you dissect it, I would say that Verstappen finishes P6 at the very most in this race. If he finishes at all, that is.
Absolutely. And yeah, he was slightly unfortunate with the qualifying yellow flags probably and the way it went. But if there's any silver lining for Red Bull as well as Max Verstappen, I think his penalty points are gone. So 3 penalty points gone, and that's the only relief they have. So again,
yeah, the
there's not
DNF
much
kind
to
of
talk.
saved him, man. In terms of penalty points, the DNF could not have come at a better time, and I think that's why Verstappen didn't immediately strangle Kimi Antonelli as soon as they got out of their cars and gave him a pat on the back and discussed gentlemanly, in a gentlemanly way with him that, oh, racing incident hota hai bhai. But fuck, man, if there was if this had happened in any other situation, I think we would have seen a very live and televised death of a young Italian driver.
Fair enough, man. But I think this is the time where we have to bring this point that we have seen in, I think, last 3-4 races and 2 DNFs for Max Verstappen. Not 2 DNF. Max Verstappen did finish P10 in Spain, and this is the DNF he got. So what's his hopes when it comes to winning that drivers championship now? Because we did say that the tools are not there, but we always say that Max Verstappen is that driver who can extract maybe 100% or even 200% from that car. But even mathematically now he's just going way too far from McLaren boys, and they have all the tools and all the resources that they need to fight at top.
See, that's the thing, right? When you don't have the tools to do this, even if you're Max Verstappen extracting 200% out of that car, as a function of circumstance, you will somehow end up sometimes in the near the middle of the field. And as soon as you're qualifying and ending up somewhere in the middle of the field, you can't help but be a part of such drama. Because the midfield is where you will see the most amount of chaos, more likely than not, because that's where most of the cars are. So unless you can extract 200 performance and be in the first 2 rows during qualifying, it becomes increasingly more difficult to even get clean starts out of turn 1s for most races. And that's why I think even if you do well in qualifying as Max Verstappen, you're limited by you being close to the middle. That's all.
Now let's talk about Aston Martin, because even they got some points. And Fernando Alonso, man, he loves Austria, and once again he pulled out that one-stop strategy to finish P7 and narrowly beating Bortoleto, which we did talk about. So, and that's now 3 races in a row where he is in points. And now you will love this stat, but he's equal on points with Lance Stroll.
See, there is nothing to love here, because I was so confident this was gonna happen, because Lance Stroll is not someone you can reliably hedge your bets on, right? But Fernando Alonso, even with a horrible start, you can bet that he's gonna find a way to out-qualify Lance Stroll because the standard is that low for him. It's like trying to beat a fucking baby on a foot race as a fully grown adult. Like, no matter how much time you waste at the beginning, you're gonna win the race.
Yeah, man, it's sad because I support both drivers because they are part of Aston Martin team.
You
but
are forced to support both drivers. You don't support both drivers. You only support Alonso. Come on, be true to yourself.
say whatever you want to say, but those are just your words, not mine. But yeah, I really want to see both drivers scoring points, man, and that's something we haven't seen so far. So that's the sad part because Lance Stroll was invisible again. He finished P14 and he was part of some midfield duels. I think even he fought with Tsunoda, and that was, I think, Tsunoda's fault. But yeah, there was not much Lance Stroll could have done considering where he started, and that's the reason why he really needs to step up his qualifying game, man. We have said it countless times that he's not doing that. Yes, your teammate is Fernando Alonso, but you have to be close at least, if not be, out qualifying him. So if he's able to sort out his qualifying form, probably he can get some points because I feel Aston has that tool now where they can perform better, and Silverstone is the race where they are bringing their major upgrades for the season. And they did say that these are the final upgrades because they want to focus on 2026. So if those upgrades work well, could they be that team who will be fighting for that lower end of points, or maybe can surprise some other teams at the top? But we have seen historically those upgrades don't work like the way we said, apart from the one they brought in, I think, Miami. So far Aston Martin is doing well, and they do need both drivers to score points regularly if they really want to move forward. That's how it should be, because right now they are on 28 points with 14 points for both drivers. But so far, no race weekend to show that both drivers got points, right? As a whole.
The good thing is that, assuming that the upgrades they bring in Silverstone are good and not de-evolution, the good thing is, going into the summer break, both the drivers can lock in, completely dial their setup on simulators and put a lot of practice hours on the simulator, because they know this is pretty much the spec of the car they have to live with for the second half of the season. That is one big advantage of not bringing a lot of upgrades after the midpoint of the season. And in that, if the upgrades are even a slightly helpful tool in Aston Martin's arsenal, at least both drivers can figure out a way to bring points consistently. As you said, both drivers could do that going into the second half of the season. And I think that is a little bit of a beacon of hope for Aston Martin, because honestly, other than that, there is not a lot they can do this season, right? If God forbid if it happens that the upgrades don't work out the way they are supposed to and the way we are hoping, they're just going to be at the back and we won't have anything to talk about for them, and then pretty much we might be seeing them from 28 to 35 points maximum, but even that would be a long shot at that point.
I hope that's not the case, because I can't see those races anytime soon as an Aston Martin fan. But for now, I'm enjoying this part where at least Alonso is scoring those regular points, and I really hope he continues to do that, because if he gets those tools, I think he can fight way ahead from what he's getting, even if he's just fighting those rookies or if he's fighting those championship leaders. I think he is always that driver who can extract more performance from that car.
Absolutely, and quite right. He just needs a little bit of a push in terms of car performance, and man, I do hope that push comes in Silverstone when they bring their final set of upgrades, and maybe there is some sort of newy magic underneath the car there, and that could be something that could help them also be a part of the mid-table championship fight, because as things stand, Alpine is nowhere and Aston Martin is close to nowhere. So yeah, Racing Bulls, Haas and Sauber are sort of pulling away as well. And yeah, I think this is a great segue to talk about Alpine, which they had a good chance, man. Both drivers had the chance to be in points, but both, due to circumstance, call it driver error, up to you. That's the audience's perspective for both of them. But Gasly had a spin as well. He lost a bunch of positions, so his points hopes pretty much died with that. Colapinto was briefly near the points as well until he also had his moments, and I mean, this is GG's for Colapinto. I don't think they retain him anymore, and if they do, I'll be a little bit surprised, honestly.
Yeah, man, I think it's not Alpine, it's Alpine at the moment because nothing is working for them. Pierre Gasly started from P10, so there was that glitter of hope that maybe some points are possible this weekend. And he was fighting well, to be honest. He did start well, and maybe it was just the soft tires that he had, but he got P13 and he sounded completely lost on the radio, which is not what he needed when we talked about Alpine and their desperation to get those points, no matter who is driving the car at this point. They are just P10 and clueless at this point, and probably why we don't get that time to talk about Alpine much, because there's not much to talk about. It's the same case. Gasly qualifies well, but he moves backwards, and Colapinto is not doing anything to show. And the only part where we can talk about Alpine is do they get another driver, because that's the part that maybe keep Alpine relevant at this point.
I don't know, man. See, the thing is, the obvious course of action is fine. Hot swap the driver again. Let's see how the next one does. But at what point do Alpine stop playing games like these? At a certain point, they also have to acknowledge that their car is also a little bit shit.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be the mid-table contenders to Williams. Williams has fallen off of their pedestal as well, which we must get to very soon. But yeah, both the mid-table contenders supposedly have just fell from grace, and Alpine more so because Gasly did have a good start to the season. And if someone as consistent as Gasly, who I do believe to be consistent, and if he can't do a lot with this car, you honestly can't expect Colapinto to do a lot as well, given that he only got 5 races to even feel the car out. And be that as it may, he still had some hopes this race, because he was hovering around P12 during the middle part of the race, and maybe he could have gotten into the points as well by the end of the race. But yeah, no dice for him as well. So it's a moral dilemma, honestly. Do you really take out Colapinto and try your hand at another driver? Yes, maybe it's a gamble that could work out, but on the other hand, then you're wasting another 5 races or X number of races on a driver that you don't necessarily know if they're going to get used to the car and bring some points. So no matter how you look at it, you're in a bit of a dilemma, and what do you even do here?
Right, man. I think from here, probably Colapinto will be on a 1 race contract every race. That's how I see it. Because considering Silverstone is just next weekend, I don't think they will change their driver pairing, at least for this weekend, because after Silverstone, maybe it makes sense because there will be 2 weeks gap before they move to Belgium. So maybe Colapinto will get that drive for 1 more race, because I think it makes sense. This race weekend didn't go as per the script, and he was spun by Tsunoda, which was not Colapinto's fault. But at the final stage, he was the one who was creating problem for Piastri during those blue flag moments, and he looked like a rookie struggling to find his feet. But I still think that it makes sense to give him 1 more try, just because there's no break, there's no gap in between those 2 race weekends. So maybe it makes sense to put him for 1 more race weekend just to see whether he can extract some performance. But right now, if he continues to perform like this, then I think that time is very limited for him.
Absolutely. And another team that has very limited time to make something out of their drivers and their car is Williams, man, because double DNF, I mean, come on. I said this a couple of videos ago that Williams can afford to fuck around a little bit because they're very cushy and comfortable at the middle of the table in terms of WCC, but 3 races, no points? That's a bit much. I mean, fine, Sainz had 1 point somewhere in there, but there is nothing to show for, man.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
what do you even say? Fine, at least Sainz, you can say that it was absolutely not his fault. Poor man lost it in the formation lap itself, and the engine went and fucked itself. And another sad weekend for Albon as well, because it seems like anytime he's racing in the middle of the field, he too has terrible luck where he gets into scraps where it's not really his fault, or there are mechanical issues.
yeah, man. I don't know what more I can say, because Carlos Sainz, as you rightly pointed out, that he didn't even started this race. He was just stuck on the grid. He was like stuck on gear one, and then another fiery moment for Sainz in Austria. We have seen that in 2022, and now maybe deja vu for him. And I don't know, he's not. Yes, the tools which he got maybe for last 2-3 race weekends, he's not able to show the fire in the results except in from that car. So I don't know what Carlos Sainz can do. Obviously, he needs to race before to show, but his qualifying was not that great, and probably he thought that there was some damage as well. So it's from the story which we thought initially, even before the race one in Australia, we knew that Williams looks quick. From the Bahrain preseason testing, it was looking like a team that we have to watch out for, but they are just going backwards and backwards. And speaking about Alex Albon, he did climb into top 10 but retired again, and I think that's his third consecutive DNF now. So at this point, it is a sign to worry about, because this team is just falling apart. And this is funnily enough, and this is very funny part, but this is happening just after James Wall's extension. I can say that makes no sense, but this was the track where they should have performed better, but literally nothing to show, and reliability is becoming a big concern for them, because next is Silverstone, which historically suits Williams really well. I don't know if they're getting any upgrades, but they really need a better weekend now, man. It's high time that they have to show that we are still maybe the best of the race, because from last 3-4 races, I can't say that, right?
Yeah, so then I think the problem is equally divisible between the driver and the car, because the Mercedes engine is clearly not reliable. Air temperatures hovering around 30 degrees Celsius, and the Mercedes engine struggles is very tragic, because then what is going to happen when they go to races like Baku, like Kota? What is going to happen there? Those are hot races in terms of air temperature, at least, unless it rains. So that is the problem with the reliability of the car, and the problem with the drivers is that maybe they're just not feeling it, man. And such events do shake your faith in the car as well, right? Because it is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable to push the car when you know that the engine might blow up at any second.
Yeah, true, man. And we have talked about the Mercedes reliability, because Aston Martin saw that initially with Fernando Alonso getting DNF, and then Antonelli and even Russell had his moments, and now it's just Williams. So the reliability is a big concern, and how they can sort it out, I don't know. But maybe they need some heavy rain in Silverstone, or it would be just tears for all the Williams fans, because they are just going backwards.
Somehow, though, between all of the customer teams, McLaren has managed to make that Mercedes engine work. Like, somehow they've managed to work out the problem with reliability, because at least they're not DNFing due to mechanical issues.
Don't say it, don't say it, don't say it.
I think that's a very good place to stop this discussion. An amazing Austrian GP, very entertaining, that's for sure.
Absolutely, man. And from the Styrian Mountains, we are moving to the legendary Straits of Silverstone now. And it doesn't get any bigger than this. Next week is the British Grand Prix, Lando's home turf, Lewis' Old Kingdom, and Ollie's first home visit on the most iconic track in the sport. With Piastri versus Norris heating up, Verstappen out for revenge, and Ferrari finally stringing together those results, and Silverstone could be another season defining weekend. So I think it will be an interesting weekend. But if you really enjoyed this video, do smash that like button and please subscribe, man. What are you doing if you haven't subscribed it already, man? Your support really means the world to us. And as we are building this home for passionate F1 fans, we are blessed to have you. And we are only just getting started. So do smash that like button, show your support, and let us know what are your views and how you see that British Grand Prix to go this weekend. But when the drama hits, we are waving the red flag. Goodbye.